me, the next big step in this journey is, to use your term, automation, right? How do we go beyond just showing? How do we go beyond just reporting? And how do we take it to the world of, whether you call it remediation, whether you call it action, whether you call it just, I've built a level of trust in the system now. I understand what it's doing. Just take care of it for me, and it'll save even more time, to your point. Can you talk a bit about how you reached that level of comfort, assuming that's where you're at, and I believe that's where you're at? Can you talk to me about that journey to comfort with automation, or if you see it a little bit differently?
Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting observation and a very good question. So let's start with the kind of, again, as you said, a few years back, when we had a manual report that we would create and an Excel file that we would update, and that would be then shared on a kind of weekly report with multiple people. But that was a very, very manual intensive process. And then it also got us to think of, wait, if we're doing this manually, maybe we're doing other things manually with cost itself, from reserved instances to data lifecycle to, I'd say, database partitioning. There are multiple things that you think or you might be doing manually that you transfer to the automatic side of life as part of the cloud. And for some reason, the billing is almost always like the last one. It's like everyone knows it's sweet to delete. You make sure that you don't keep data in the cloud that you don't need, and that you have a lifetime policy on it, because forever you're going to be paying more and more, and the graph trend will always be going up. So you want to make sure that you have a policy that, let's say, is, I don't know, 18 months. And then you constantly have a certain amount of data, unless the data itself is growing. With automation on reserved instances or spot instances or anything around that world, you can actually achieve the next level of automation and of cost improvements. And instead of having those quarterly discussions and checking, oh, these are the reserved instances that have kind of not matured, have reached their end of cycle, their end of purchase cycle. Do I renew them? Do I not? Have I been using them? Have I not? Spending a lot of time there. We found the kind of Flex servers, the Flexsave, kind of to be the next level of automation for us. So that's yet another product that we're using today, where instead of managing reserved instances on a scale and constantly trying to think and plan, and actually, when you're using reserved instances, you're doing something that is counter cloud intuitive. You're saying, okay, let me plan 3 years in advance, as if you bought a physical server. I stopped buying physical servers with the cloud. I mean, I still have a very large install base of physical servers, but I'm not. The whole idea of the cloud, again, is to manage this totally differently and come to my internal partners and not tell them commit now for 3 years or this will cost 30% more. And this is really the beauty of Flex, because we come in and we say, okay, automate all of this for me. And now from month to month, I commit only, I don't even commit, I auto commit with this product to only the servers that are relevant. I save the cost as if they were reserved instances, but I get a month by month flexibility, which is really amazing, and zero work on my side. I'm getting all of the savings and zero work. So it's like almost a non-brainer to use it.
Well, I thank you for mentioning that. Our Flexsave investment started, I would say, at the beginning of 2021, when we realized we observed some of the patterns of behavior and some of the patterns in the problem set that our clients were experiencing across the industry. And I think you touched on some of the most critical ones. Yes, there are ways that the cloud providers give you plenty of ways to reduce the unit cost for infrastructure. And these are sort of ubiquitous and generally well understood. I would say, at least we understand what savings I can generate on a per unit basis. The problem, I think, as you nailed, was it requires predictability. Because it requires a commitment. It requires a commitment in either 1 or 3 year increments. And as exactly as you say, the very nature of the cloud is it's ephemeral, it's elastic. Infrastructure comes and goes. It's changing. It's changing. I would say constantly or continuously. And so it is. I love the way you put it. It's counterintuitive in the world of cloud. It's sort of almost it's anti-pattern, right? When you think about the whole point of the cloud and elastic compute. And so that was the problem we set out to solve when we started down the Flexsave path. And so, roll the clock forward now, what we see is companies like Taboola who just are comfortable with the idea of saying, yeah, look, I don't need to maintain a staff. I don't need to spend hours myself trying to manage my fleet of discounts, right? I need to track how many do I need. I need teams to tell me how long they can commit. I need to come up with some steady state or predictable steady state level of usage, and then ensure I'm covered there. And what does coverage even mean? Am I covered for all workload types, all machine types, all regions, all geos? It becomes an n-dimensional problem, and it's almost too much for the human brain, I think, to keep up with. And I think we sort of felt like software and automation is the only way to solve this problem. And oh, by the way, ease the commitment risk, ease the commitment problem. So thank you for touching on that. So you've had a chance to you were one of our earliest customers around Flexsave, and so you've had a chance to see this in action for some time now. Where has this, I would say, most dramatically helped you in your day to day?
So the fact that we don't have to have these conversations around how much time do we want to commit? What is this product? When are we going to see ROI from it? Do you want to buy things for 3 years or not? And really take the cloud to its fullest extent. So Flexsave saves us time. I mean, obviously it saves cost. All right, let's start with the end in mind. It's pure, simple cost savings. Taking that for a second aside, the fact that it saves time by really stopping these conversations. I recall multiple meetings where we're sitting with the internal partner and saying, look, you haven't committed, we have here. And for whatever reason, you're not working on spot instances because it's not an ephemeral instance. It has its storage. It can't be on some storage that doesn't, that goes away. Whatever the tech problem that it's not on the least cost path, let's find a way that we can still enjoy cost savings. And the client is going, but I don't know, will this still be here 3 months, 4 months? If it's 8 months, then we have ROI because you can commit for a full year. And all this just goes away. You don't have to explain it every time. You don't have to have these conversations. You don't have to create reports. You just let the automation work, and you have the flex savings where you need them. Another fun part is that every time you look at reserved instances, historically at least. By the way, I really want to buy that time machine. You're constantly rolling forward and back the clock there, but we'll have that a conversation on another time. If we all recall, the way that we use reserved instances is you buy like the minimum amount of reserve, and then you automate the auto scale. Use the auto scale for like the spikes and whatnot. If you have a graceful enough spike that isn't an hour a day, you can have a really fun kind of experience with Flexsave, because if your spikes are 3/4 of the month long, Flexsave will know to tell you, oh, here, this, that, or the other, here are the solutions. Automate, yes, no. Once you automate, you don't even have to think about that anymore, and you just save the costs.
Got it. Yeah, I'm working on the clock problem. The purpose of having a clock on the wall, I guess, is offset if it's constantly changing. I think the video is behaving strangely. So I think you touched on some very critical points there. As I mentioned earlier, the primary problem we were trying to solve with Flexsave is to get companies out of the business of having teams just sitting around trying to ensure they're paying the best rate for usage that they actually need, right? Or usage that is actually growing and ebbing and flowing, so to speak. So Flexsave at its core focuses on finding the best rate for your compute usage without you having to commit to 1 or 3 years. We essentially take the risk of that commitment, and then you get the benefit as you said, on a month-to-month basis. I think maybe that's probably the best way to summarize it. Our goal here is to work with companies and to give them a product that can find the best unit rate for usage that they know they need. And as that comes and goes, having confidence and comfort knowing that the best rate's always going to apply. Right? I think that's kind of what we set out to do there.